It took exactly 3 seconds for James to destroy his peace of mind. 3 seconds to tell a small, stupid lie that would grow into a monster and nearly ruin his life. Let's go back to the beginning. James was 26, living in a tiny, freezing apartment on the edge of London. He grew up in a small village, the son of a baker, but he moved to the city with dreams of expensive suits, high-rise offices, and respect. The reality, however, was crushing him. James worked as a junior assistant at a massive electronics company. He was basically invisible. He spent 8 hours a day filing papers, fixing the photocopier, and making tea for a boss who called him John instead of James. He was barely surviving financially. His dinner was often just instant noodles, eaten while sitting on his bed because there was no space for a table. Every night, James tortured himself with his phone. He scrolled through Instagram, watching the glamorous lives of his 3 best friends from university. There was Sarah, a brilliant lawyer, posting photos from business trips to Paris. There was David, who just sold his tech startup for millions, buying a Porsche. And Mark, a successful doctor, renovating his beautiful new house. James felt a physical pain in his stomach when he looked at their photos. He felt like a failure. He felt left behind. Then the message arrived. A notification popped up in their old group chat. Reunion dinner, this Friday at the Golden Truffle in Mayfair. No excuses. James felt sick with anxiety instantly. The Golden Truffle was one of the most expensive restaurants in the city. A glass of water probably cost more than his hourly wage. He almost typed, "I can't go," but his pride stopped him. He wanted to see them, but he was terrified of their judgment. He spent the rest of the week sweating with nervousness. On Friday evening, he put on his only suit, which was slightly shiny from too much ironing, and polished his old shoes until his arms hurt. He looked in the mirror and made a desperate decision. He told himself, "Tonight, you are not an assistant. Tonight, you are a success." Walking into the restaurant felt like walking onto a movie set. It smelled of expensive perfume and rich food. His friends were already at a table, looking incredible. Sarah wore dazzling jewellery, and David's watch probably cost more than James's entire apartment. They hugged him warmly, ordered expensive champagne, and for an hour it was wonderful. But then the inevitable happened. The conversation turned to careers. Sarah talked about winning a huge court case. Mark discussed a complex surgery he performed. Then the table went quiet, and all eyes turned to James. David smiled and asked the question James feared most. "So, James, you are still at that big electronics giant, right? You must have climbed high by now. What about you running these days?" Time seemed to slow down. James felt dizzy. The smell of the expensive food suddenly made him feel sick. He looked at their expectant, successful faces. He could not bear to say, "I make photocopies." The shame was too much. His throat went dry, his heart hammered against his ribs, and the lie just spilled out. "Actually," he said, his voice tighter than usual, "I was promoted last month. I am the regional sales director for London now. I manage a team of 40 people." The writing was instant. "Wow, director at 26? Sarah gasped. "That is amazing, James." David clapped him on the back with genuine respect. For a few glorious minutes, James felt on top of the world. He was one of them, but the high did not last. When the bill arrived, a staggering £300, James felt he had to maintain his new image. "Don't be silly, I've got this," he said, snatching the bill. He paid with his credit card, mentally calculating that he now could not afford electricity for the rest of the month. That lie became a prison. Over the next 3 months, James's life became a stressful nightmare. To keep up the act of a wealthy director, he had to spend money he did not have. He opened 3 new cards. When the group wanted to go to VIP clubs, James bought the most expensive bottles. He bought a designer watch on credit just to wear it to their monthly dinners. He was drowning. He was living a double life, and it was exhausting. By day, he was being shouted at for making the coffee too cold. By night, he was pretending to close London pounds deals. He stopped sleeping. He jumped every time his phone rang, terrified it was the bank demanding money. He was constantly sweating, terrified of slipping up. Once, David asked him a specific question about market trends, and James had to fake a coughing fit just to avoid answering. He was trapped in a cage of his own making, and the walls were closing in. The crash happened on Sarah's birthday. The group booked a table at an exclusive, incredibly expensive steakhouse. James felt like he was walking to his execution. Before entering, he checked his banking app in the street. His stomach dropped. Credit card 1, empty. Credit card 2, empty. Credit card 3, only £40 available. He felt faint. He went inside, sweating profusely in the air-conditioned restaurant. He could not taste the delicious food. It tasted like ash in his mouth. He just kept drinking water, praying for a miracle. Maybe there will be a fire alarm, he hoped desperately. Maybe the credit card machines will break. They did not break. The waiter brought the bill on a silver tray. It was enormous, £850. The table went silent as they calculated the split. "That is over 200 each," Mark noted. James's hands were shaking violently under the table. He had no choice. He pulled out his last card, the one with only £40 on it, and handed it to the waiter, praying that somehow the bank system would make a mistake in his favor. The waiter, a tall man who looked very unimpressed with James's cheap suit, walked to the machine near their table. He inserted the card. Beep, beep, beep. It was a loud, nasty rejection sound. The waiter frowned and tried again. Beep, beep, beep. The silence at the table was deafening. Everyone stopped breathing. The waiter walked back, holding the card like it was dirty. He spoke loudly enough for the tables nearby to hear. "I am very sorry, sir. The card has been declined. Insufficient funds. Do you have another means of payment?" James felt the blood drain from his face. He felt dizzy. He looked at Sarah, David, and Mark. They were not angry. They just looked completely confused. "James?" Sarah asked gently. "Is everything okay? You are a director. Surely this is a mistake." The pressure in his chest became unbearable. The room was spinning. He could not lie for one more second. James put his head in his hands right there in the fancy restaurant and started to cry uncontrollably. It was ugly, desperate crying. "I can't pay," he choked out through his tears. "I don't have any money. It's all a lie. Everything is a lie." Between sobs, he confessed everything. The boring job, the tiny apartment, the crushing debt. "I am not a director," he whispered, horrified at himself. "I just wanted you to respect me. I wanted to be like you." He waited for the explosion. He waited for them to stand up, disgusted, and walk away. He deserved it. Instead, he felt a warm hand cover his shaking hand on the table. He looked up, his eyes swollen. It was Sarah. She had tears in her own eyes. "Oh, James," she said, her voice unbelievably soft. "You idiot. You complete idiot." "We don't care about your job title," David said, his voice thick with emotion. "We became friends with you 7 years ago because you are the funniest, kindest guy we know, not because of your bank balance." "We just thought you were busy and stressed," Mark added gently. "We missed our friend. You didn't need to impress us. You just needed to be there." David quietly paid the entire bill. They took James out of the restaurant and sat with him in a quiet cafe for hours, making a plan to help him fix his finances. It took James 2 years of working weekends and living on a strict budget to pay off his debt. It was hard work. But the next time they met for dinner, they went to a cheap burger place. James wore his jeans and t-shirt. He told them a funny story about jamming the photocopier at work, and they all laughed until their sides hurt. He had no money in his pocket, but he felt lighter and happier than he had in years. James learned the hard way that pretending to be someone else is the most exhausting, lonely job in the world. Real connection doesn't come from impressing people. It comes from being honest, even when it's scary. Be brave enough to be yourself. It is always enough. I'm Narges. Thanks for watching Talkify, and I'll see you in the next story. Please like and subscribe my channel.